First, let me say that the information, opinions, and content presented here do not necessarily represent the views of ASU or Whitworth University. We encourage everyone in attendance to always do their own fact-checking on any information presented and critically assess their own opinions on the subject. Thank you for your attendance. Also, I'd like to say that there will be a Q&A session at the end, so please save all your questions and comments until then. I'd like to briefly introduce our speaker, Kristan Hawkins. She's been president of Students for Life of America since 2006 and serves as their official spokeswoman. She has appeared on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, EWTN, Family Talk with Dr. James Johnson and the Christian Broadcasting Network. She's a frequent blogger of livenews.com, townhall.com, and has also been quoted in numerous national and regional papers such as the Washington Times, Washington Post, and foxnews.com. Kristan is also the author of the book Courageous, Students Abolishing Abortion in This Lifetime, which was published in 2013. In college, Kristan majored in political science, and she graduated summa cum laude from Bethany College in West Virginia in 2005. Before coming to Students for Life, Kristan worked for the 2004 Bush-Cheney re-election campaign, the Republican National Committee, and served as a political appointee in the George W. Bush administration at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Center for Faith-Based and Community Initiatives. Since working at Students for Life of America, Kristan has been awarded the Susan B. Anthony Young Leader Award, the Dr. William Hogan Education Award for Pro-Life Leadership, and the 2006 Wayrich Youth Leadership Award, and a 2010 Life Prize Award. Now, without further ado, would you all join me in welcoming Kristan Hawkins?
Remember my high school. Where's the little, oh, it's this little button down here. This is awesome. All right. Sorry, I switched to Mac a few years ago, and now I'm just PC illiterate. Apparently my brain can't hold all the information at the same time. So thank you guys for turning out tonight. It's an honor to come here. This is actually my first trip out to this part of Washington. I spend a lot of time in the Seattle area, so it was a lovely day for me to come here. I didn't want to leave Minnesota though. We finally got over our snow. Our last snow was last Monday, so it was nice in Minnesota though today. And don't be afraid to come to Minnesota. It's not as bad as some people may think. So I just wanted to start off today. I was asked to speak a few months ago, actually. Whitworth Students for Life, Pirates for Life had asked me to come and speak about feminism, about Planned Parenthood, about abortion. You know, like the really easy topics that everyone agrees upon. So I just wanted to say, you know, I want to thank you all for being open to having this conversation. This is not an easy conversation to be had. It's one that divides families, dinner tables across the country. It's one that's hashed out every day in angry and passive-aggressive social media posts and memes. But this is an important issue for our country, and this is an important issue for us to be talking about. And this is, quite frankly, the place and the time in your life that we need to talk about this issue. So I'm going to start kind of telling you a little bit about me, my story. I grew up in a pretty small town in West Virginia, near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My father grew up a product of a mostly single mother, lived in poverty his whole life, graduated high school, and went off working for the coal industry, as so many do in West Virginia, providing a good life for our family. It's a job that he is happily retiring from this December, and he can't wait to do that. And he was one of my main motivations in my academic career. You know, he was always there telling me to do better, that I could do better. I was made to do better, and really, you know, just showing this is why your school matters. This is why your career matters. You know, do a good job, get a scholarship to college, and choose the career you want to have. Don't be forced into a career that I've been forced into. And I look back at that a lot, and I think, you know, a lot of people ask me why I'm a type A driven personality, and I can thank my father for that and the extra credit he made me go and do at first grade for getting a B on the test, or having to get a comma tutor in the 5th grade when I got a B on my grammar test. And I'm excellent at Oxford commas. You can ask anyone on our team. I know where an Oxford comma belongs, and trust me, they belong in writing. None of this new age stuff of leaving out the Oxford comma. My mother was a school teacher, and she was a working mother, so I learned a lot of lessons from her and her constant juggling between work, family, taking care of me and my sister, my dad, going back and forth to her leadership positions in our church. I learned a lot from them. And I think if you would have asked me in high school, and even in college, if you would have asked me, are you a feminist? I would have, replied with a resounding, hell yeah, I am a feminist. This is what I'm doing. I know, and I knew at that time that I was equal to my peers. I had better grades than my male peers. It wasn't something that I ever thought that I was less than my male peers because I was a woman. I had better grades, I got better scholarships. I knew that I had the same opportunities that they had in school and in my career. But today, at almost 32, Friday will be my birthday. I'm not too excited about that. But at almost 32, I think when people ask me, especially reporters a lot, ask me, do you consider yourself a feminist? I don't usually know what to say. I don't know if it's a typical millennial response of, I don't want to be labeled, or if it's I don't know if I want to be a part of that group. I don't know if I want to be labeled with that title. Now, I believe in the goal of our feminist foremothers. I believe in equality for human beings, the right of women to vote, the right for women to own property, to speak publicly, to choose and fulfill their own educational and career destiny. I think of my daily life, my life leading Students for Life of America. It's one of the nation's largest pro-life organizations. We have more than 35 team members spread out across the country. I'm married. I have 4 children, 2 of which who have genetic disabilities, which are very taxing on our family. I would think that looking at the 1960s feminists, that even looking at the first wave of feminists, the Susan B. Anthony's, the Elizabeth Cady Stanton's, the Alice Pauls, that I would be kind of considered living, I'm a living proof of their work. That I was able to go to college. I got a full ride to college. I was able to go into the career of my choice. I was able to make a career out of something people said it was impossible. I'm an entrepreneur, right? But yet, if you would ask many leaders into the quote-unquote today's feminist movement whether or not I am a feminist, they would say absolutely not. They would say that I represent everything that's wrong with women. Many times when we're out protesting, I'm spit at, yelled at, usually by women who are my mother's age or older, and I'm told I'm a disgrace to women. So I don't know if I'm a feminist, and I don't know if I want to call myself a feminist. And if you're hoping to get some answers tonight, I'm not going to give you a lot of answers, I'm sorry. I'm not welcome in this movement. And it's because of one issue. It's the issue of abortion. This was demonstrated perfectly to us this January with the Women's March. After Donald Trump was elected president, women online decided they were going to march against Donald Trump and his policies. And, at Students for Life, we have conservative and liberal members. We have Republicans, we have Democrats, mostly a lot of independents. We have Christians, we have atheists. And I actually reached out to the Women's March several times, and I said, hey, I heard you're looking for corporate sponsors. I think this is an important issue. I would love to be a part of this. It's a great discussion to have. No response, no response. Some of my other friends' organizations, their title of the organization wasn't quite clear what they were doing. So they mistakenly, the Women's March, mistakenly actually approved some of my friends' organizations until an Atlantic article came out with myself and their organization touting about our participation in the upcoming Women's March, and then they were promptly removed from the list of sponsors. Planned Parenthood actually became the platinum sponsor and was the only organization, abortion organization up there on the main stage. We were told we weren't welcome. And this was an issue that, the Women's March organizers, I think a lot of them were pretty new to the movement. They were just angry about the election of Donald Trump. They were particularly concerned about LGBTQIA issues. So really, even on their platform of their website until mid-January, they didn't even mention reproductive rights or abortion. It wasn't after the pro-life women came out and said, where are we? Are we excluded? We represent the majority of women. Where are we in this march? That they then promptly took a pro-abortion stance, affirming the right to abortion on demand in all 9 months, taxpayer funded by you and I. So we were there. We went and we jumped in front of the march. It was pretty disorganized. They're not as good as organizing as we are at the annual March for Life. We do it every year. World's largest social movement organizing. So when the Women's March came by on Constitution Avenue, Students for Life jumped out with our Abortion Betrays Women signs. And we led the Women's March for several blocks until we got to the White House. And then we stood silently, mostly silently, I was on a bullhorn, on Constitution Avenue as we witnessed to women. And we talked to them about how Planned Parenthood betrays them, how the abortion industry lies to them, and that there's real hope and healing and love available for them. And we were there. We were there even though we weren't welcome. We were there because we wanted to stand up for the victims of violence in our country. The more than 2,600 children that are violently killed every single day. Abortion is a violent act. There's no denying that abortion is violence. We were there for the women who've died alone on the cold abortionist table by themselves, believing that there was no other choice between having their child and continuing the life that they've always dreamed of. We were there for the millions of women who've undergone an abortion procedure, who were betrayed and lied to by the abortion industry. I can't tell you how many women we were standing there on Constitution Avenue as the Women's March kept coming by and by and by. There were women, and like I said, it was mostly women my mother's age and older who had very nice words to say to me. It wasn't actually women our generation. Because they were yelling and screaming. There were women who, their friends were standing next to them, and they would look down as they saw our Abortion Betrays Women sign, and they would look up at me and just kind of nod, and they'd look back down. Their friends over there making a fool of themselves, screaming at me, cursing at me, whatever, but she knows the truth of what abortion did to her. We were there for the young women. Our generation, which was told in the KCV Planned Parenthood decision by the Supreme Court in 1994, that in order to be successful, we had to mold into a male-dominated society. That we have to adapt to a male workplace, and that's what makes us successful. Men and women, I reject that notion. I reject the notion that abortion sets women free. That abortion is somehow needed to ensure our freedom. That I must pay someone to commit a violent act upon someone else, someone weaker than me, in order for me to have control. Abortion is the opposite of empowerment, and I would argue has no place in the feminist movement. In fact, I would actually question you if you call yourself pro-choice and a feminist. Because there's a few core principles of feminism that have remained constant throughout the years, throughout the different waves of feminism. The discipline of nonviolence, the demand for equality, the understanding that one human should never oppress another or treat another human being as property. These are core feminism tenets, and they define abortion. Because abortion is the violent destruction of a living human being based on the view that one human being has greater value and has the right to oppress the other. The issue of abortion at its core is anti-feminist. Now, I don't know how many of you have studied the history of feminism as I have. See, this is why I don't have PC. Updates my butt. But you can Google this. You don't have to trust what I'm saying. The first feminists, the suffragettes, were undoubtedly pro-life. Undoubtedly knew that the destruction of an innocent human being was wrong. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who you see there, she was in the abolitionist movement. Her husband was actually a pretty prominent abolitionist. Was there at the Seneca Falls Convention. Was the editor of Susan B. Anthony's magazine, The Revolution. Was the leader of the Women's Suffragists Association. The mother of 7 children said, "There must be a remedy for such a crying evil as this. But where shall it be found, at least begin, if not in the complete enfranchisement and elevation of women?" Sarah Norton, she was a traveling lecturer. She was the first woman to win her admittance to Cornell University. Wrote in the Revolution frequently and spoke out against abortion. And actually, in one of her prominent essays called Tragedy, rebuked husbands who were procuring dangerous poisons to feed their wives in order to produce abortions. Victoria Woodhull. A lot of people in this election cycle said that Hillary Clinton was the first woman to run for president. False. It was this lady. 1870, she was the first woman to declare her candidacy as president. She did it as a way to raise awareness for the women's suffrage. She was an outspoken pro-life woman. She and her sister in their own newspaper wrote, "Wives deliberately permit themselves to become pregnant of children and then to prevent becoming mothers, as deliberately murder them while yet in the wombs. Can there be a more demoralized condition than this? We are aware that many women attempt to excuse themselves from procuring abortions upon the ground that it is not murder. But the fact of resort to so weak an argument only shows the more palpability they fully realize the enormity of the crime." Maddie Brinkenhofer. She is a popular pro-life suffragist. She's somebody who comes up often. She's often quoted in a lot of internet memes. She wrote in The Revolution, "When a man steals to satisfy hunger, we may safely conclude that there's something wrong in society. So when a woman destroys the life of her unborn child, it is evidence that either by education or circumstances, she, too, has been greatly wronged." Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell, she was the first woman in America to earn a medical degree. She wrote frequently about Madame Restell, the notorious illegal abortionist in New York City. Talked about how dangerous she was to the medical profession. Dr. Charlotte Lozier, you'll see there, was another of the first women doctors in America. She actually publicly posted in Susan B. Anthony's magazine after a man had approached her to commit an abortion, rebuking him. And then, of course, there's Susan B. Anthony. Have any of you seen the SNL skit from a couple weeks ago? It was like a month ago. I don't know. I've got kids. That's too late for me on Saturday night. I was at Aldi's this weekend going, stay open for a little later. Now, there was a skit a few weeks ago on SNL, and it was poking fun pretty much at millennials. They were at Susan B. Anthony's house in Rochester, New York, and the ghost of Susan B. appeared. And they thought it was like really cool at first and took their selfies with her, but then they were just like, pay attention to her and talking about the Uber they were trying to call and what they were going to do next. But at the end of this piece, this skit from SNL, I loved it. At the end of the piece, as the girls are walking out to do whatever young 25-year-old girls who don't have 4 kids do, Susan B. goes, and don't forget, abortion is murder. I was like, thank you, SNL. This is what we've been trying to say for decades. And Susan B. Anthony, probably one of the most, if not the most, well-known feminist, was against abortion. Her magazine, The Revolution, refused to run ads. During the late 1800s, it was very popular in magazines to earn revenue through ads, much like today, the magazines that still are producing a profit. And one of the big ads of the day was to run ads for medications and herbs and things that would help a woman, terminate a pregnancy, to be no longer pregnant. And that was one of their key principles, was never to allow any advertiser in the Revolution to advocate for abortion, despite it being very lucrative. And I don't know about you, but I don't think the women's suffragist movement was a really fully funded movement. In an essay called Child Murder, Susan B. Anthony wrote, "Guilty? Yes, no matter what the motive, love of ease or desire to save from suffering the unborn innocent, the woman is awfully guilty who commits this deed. It will burden her conscience in life. It will burden her soul in death. But oh, thrice guilty is he who, for selfish gratification, heedless of her prayers, indifferent to her fate, drove her to the desperation which impels her to the crime." Now was Paul, the original author of the Equal Rights Amendment. Have any of you seen the movie Iron Jawed Angels? That was a big thing in my high school. She wrote, I think she summed it up, "Abortion is the ultimate exploitation of women." She actually predicted dead on what was going to happen in the 60s and 70s in the second wave of feminism. The 60s and 70s were an interesting time in our country, and as a history buff, I like to study a lot. The feminist mystique was that was a defining moment in the history of our country, the publication of feminist mystique. But what's interesting and what most people leave off, and when people argue with me on college campuses all the time, is that abortion and reproductive rights was in feminist mystique. It was not in the first edition of feminist mystique. And actually in 2000, Betty Friedan still maintained that she was against abortion. She was trying to address and label a restlessness and unhappiness that many women, many wives were feeling at the time of the 50s and the early 60s. Husbands were like, "I don't understand. I thought they had everything they ever wanted." Have you seen Mad Men?
Yes.
It's on Netflix. The main character, the really cute guy's wife, it sums up the feminist mystique. Yet it was two men, Larry Ladder, a journalist who had met Betty Friedan decades prior and actually worked with her, and Bernard Nathanson, an abortionist in New York State, who sold Betty and the 1960s leaders and founders of the National Organization for Women, now the lie. It was two men who hijacked an entire movement for their personal gain. That's actually when the women's movement was intersected with the sexual liberation movement. Ladder was a biographer of Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger, anyone ever hear of Margaret Sanger? A nice eugenicist who founded Planned Parenthood. You can Google that word later. What's interesting about Margaret Sanger, now Planned Parenthood today is the nation's largest abortion vendor. Margaret Sanger, for all her unethical ideas and morally reprehensible ideas, was actually against abortion. Now, she wanted to prohibit people she thought less worthy of life from coming into existence, which is why she promoted birth control and the use of birth control devices, but she actually was against abortion. Planned Parenthood actually thought she was too old school, so when she died, when Alan Guttmacher took over, the president of the American Eugenics Society took over as president of Planned Parenthood Federation, that's when they changed their position on abortion. Ladder was the biographer of Margaret Sanger, and he was very interested in her because he was a former executive director of a Hugh Moore Fund. And this was a man who'd authored the Population Bomb pamphlet, who said the coming population bomb in the 1970s would create an explosion of disruption more dangerous than an atom bomb. This is Larry Ladder. He believed abortion was the solution to that impending population bomb, which is, obviously was debunked. We're still here. He believed children were the root of poverty. But he also knew in his conversations with Bernard Nathanson, who Bernard Nathanson later in life actually became pro-life and wrote several books about how abortion was wedded to the feminist movement in the late 1960s. Latter knew that men needed to stop talking about abortion. Abortion was always something men were talking about in the 50s and 60s. White, upper middle class, rich men. And they knew if they were going to do this, if they were going to pull it off, Betty could pull it off with this upcoming movement of women's lib fighters. And so that is how abortion was tied into the feminist movement. There's a great book about it. A friend of mine worked at Cosmopolitan. She was a writer for several decades there, who later in life became a practicing Christian and pro-life, and talked about the propaganda. She was at the Now meeting when Betty Friedan ran in the abortion plank, how a lot of women weren't there, women who left Now. So, this is where we are today. It's where we are. I think the question for us is, where do we go? Because we're not going back. Pro-lifers don't advocate for the United States of America to return to the 1950s. That is not any argument I've ever heard, but frequently that's what we're accused of we idealize the 1950s America, blah, 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 blah. That's not true. But we can't go forward either, not until we understand what the feminist movement's about, until we have a really hard and honest conversation about where we are today in America with women's rights. Because as I see it, there's two main problems with the feminist movement today. The first I'll talk about a little later, but those are my kids, they're pretty cute. Gunner, Bear, Maverick, Gracie. The first main issue is that the women's movement, as it was fighting for equal right to work, the right to not be fired for being pregnant, equal pay, the right to own property, women today are even more perplexed about their career and family. Women today constantly report in studies that they feel like they're failing someone. Majority of mothers, when polled, will say that they either want to work less hours, they want to work part-time, they want to work from home. They want something different. Because the bill of goods that I was sold in high school and college about what feminism means is not what feminism is in real life. And the practical reality of being a wife, of being a mother, of being an entrepreneur really is. The other thing we need to talk about as a major concern of modern feminism is the abortion industry. Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry have taken over the feminist movement. They've taken it over. They believe it's a positive brand, and they've wedded their negative brand to it. Because they know abortion is innately a negative thing. Majority of millennials, when you're polling on abortion, asking top-of-the-mind responses, the first three things that come to our minds when we hear the word abortion is death, killing, sadness. And they need to fix that. They have to wed abortion to feminism. And their product of abortion on demand has harmed millions. It's harmed millions of women physically and emotionally, but no one will talk about it. It's not talked about. Now here's where my PowerPoint skills come in handy. It's a really sophisticated slide right there. Just on this slide, just on the plane today, I listed out just some of the very easy Googleable studies I have found showing how abortion harms women. The first one is a Finnish study that found that mean annual suicide rate for all women was 11.3 per 100,000. But that rate of suicide went up to 34.7 per 100,000 women, 3 times higher following an abortion. The suicide rate associated with birth, by contrast, was half the rate of all women, and less than 1/6 the rate of suicide among women who've had abortions. Oh, by the way, I did the source links, so you can prove I wasn't making it up. You can come and we can do that later. Over 20 studies have linked abortion to increased rates of drug and alcohol abuse. Abortion significantly is linked to a 2-fold increased risk of alcohol abuse among women. Abortion followed by alcohol abuse is linked to violent behavior, divorce, separation, auto accidents, job loss. The lowest incident of rate of PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome or disorder, reported that following abortion, the rate is 1.5%, which would translate to about 600,000 cases of abortion-induced PTSD just in America in the past 40 years. Another study found that 14% of women have all the symptoms of PTSD and attribute them to their abortions. Analysis, and this is a really important study, is Coleman, because she's quoted often by the abortion industry. Analysis of nearly 15 years of public research published in the British Journal of Psychiatry found that women who had undergone abortion experienced an 81% increased risk of mental health problems, and nearly 10% of the incidents of mental health problems were shown to be directly attributable to the abortion. In a 2003 landmark article, a survey compiled the results of several studies of abortion. These show induced abortion increases the risk of placenta previa and later pregnancy by 50%. Does anyone know what placenta previa is? It's when the uterus basically attaches to the cervix, and it's a very risky situation for child and mother. My sister actually almost died of placenta previa this February while delivering my nephew. Placenta previa, and then also doubles the risk of preterm birth. Placenta previa, preterm birth will account for 12.1% of births in the U.S. in 2002, up from 8.9 in 1980. And this is despite a nationwide effort in OB offices across the country to cut preterm births. A November 2007 article in the Journal of Reproductive Medicine attributes 31.5% of preterm birth deliveries to induced abortion. Preterm birth is scary stuff. Often children don't survive. The birth is risky for the children who do survive, as they have a 38 times higher risk of cerebral palsy. Plus, births before 32 weeks double the breast cancer risk for the mother. When a woman delays her first full-time pregnancy through abortion, she also increases her risk of developing breast cancer. We know this because it's been common science that the first full-time term pregnancy before the age of 32 acts as a protective mechanism against breast cancer. This has been undisputed science for years. Thus, research proves that an 18-year-old who aborts almost doubles her lifetime risk of breast cancer, and that risk grows incalculably high if she has a family history of breast cancer. A landmark study published in 2014 in Cancer Causes Control concluded that just one abortion increased the risk of breast cancer by 44%. For women who had 2, the risk rose to 76% and then almost doubled after 3 or more abortions. This was a landmark study because this was done throughout China. In China, abortion is not controversial. They had no reason to hide their statistics. The Chinese study was actually the 3rd study in 3 months showing a positive link between abortion and breast cancer. It was a meta-analysis that was conducted of 36 studies covering 14 provinces in China, all which compare the risk of breast cancer among women who had induced abortions and those who did not. Just a few months earlier, a Bangladesh study suggested abortion raised the risk of breast cancer up to 20%. It's not good for women. Why is abortion a feminist cause? Why are we told that abortion is something that women need in order to be free? I've never had an abortion. I've only witnessed the horror stories from friends who've had abortions. Later, if we have time, I'm going to show you a short video from a friend, Jocelyn, who's still dealing with her abortion. But what I can tell you from personal experience is the number one question I often get asked, that I often get asked from students that I mentor, young women that come and are interested in serving full-time in a pro-life vocation. The question I often get asked from them is, how can I do it? How can I be a mom? How can I get married, be a wife? How can I have a full-time career? Not even mentioning the craziness of serving in the full-time, pro-life movement. And the simple answer I often give them is, you can't do it all. That's the myth of feminism. That's the lie of feminism. And the sooner you accept it, the better off you'll be. And this is from an overachiever who wishes that there were 36 hours in a day. This is from a person who sleeps routinely 4 hours a night. Trust me, I've tried to do it all, and I never can do it perfectly. If I do everything I need to do at work, my family life suffers. If I do everything I need to do with my family, I feel like my work suffers. Something always has to give. My life is a constant struggle of priorities, of what's the most important thing I have to be doing right now. What can wait till a few days later? What can wait until 9 o'clock at night when everyone goes to bed and I go back to work? I know there are glass balls, and I know there are rubber balls, and I'm constantly juggling them. My job is to figure out what my glass balls are and what my rubber balls are. My glass balls I can't drop. My rubber balls will bounce back up. My family is really unique. In order to accommodate my work, my mission in life, my quest, we've restructured our entire family. We've restructured the entire family around my work. My husband was a public school teacher for 10 years in Virginia. When we moved to Minnesota, he's now a full-time stay-at-home dad. He homeschools our 2 children, and he's there taking care of all of their medical needs. Right now, I've got 2 that are sick. But it's not easy. It's not the life my husband would have ever said he dreamt for himself. If you would ask him if he thinks he's the best homeschooling dad, he probably would say, heck no. His daily goal is just to get through the disorder of the day, to make sure that all the kids are educated the way they need to be educated. They're all fed. They've all done their breathing treatments. They've all had their vest treatments. They've had enough calorie intake for their disease. When we moved to Minnesota, for example, when we bought our home, Jonathan wasn't allowed to be on the loan for our home because he wasn't working any longer, didn't have an income. So I had to sign the loan myself. So I technically own our home. That went over real well. And that was something that my husband still struggles with, that I am the breadwinner for the family. Now, he's a breadwinner for the family in different ways, and all my children are going to be geniuses and get scholarships to college. So his payment will just be delayed a little bit, is what I like to tell him. No pressure there. But it's different. It's not the life we ever thought we would have for ourselves. Every single day that I'm gone is a day that I'm missing with my children. I have 2 children who have, if they're lucky today in America, they will live to their 38. Every single day that I'm gone for work, that I travel somewhere, I'm missing a precious day with them. And I know how precious the time is. My life isn't what I thought it would be. I used to live like an hour and a half from our office in DC, and working in nonprofits, very glamorous and get lots of money. Not. So I would commute 90 minutes to work because that's where we could live cheaply. But it was 3 hours of traffic. So I would get up every morning and have to leave my house by 5 a.m. A lot of nights I didn't get home until 9 p.m. at night. That's when I still thought that I could do it all. Now I'm wise at almost 32 and I realize I can't. But that's been a constant struggle for me in my life. Realizing that feminist lie of we can have it all, we can do whatever we want. Yeah, we can do whatever we want, but there will be consequences to that. And something's going to pay. I reject that notion that we can have it all without consequences, because there's always consequences to every decision I make. I reject the notion that I have to take a carcinogenic drug, a group 1 carcinogen labeled by the World Health Organization, to alter my body's normal function in order to be like men and to work in a male-dominated society. I'm angry. I'm angry with the second wave feminists because they lied. They lied. And they were duped. I know that men are equal to women and women are equal to men and should be treated as such. Duh. I've witnessed sexism in the workplace. Shock. I believe we as women have achieved most of the goals of the first wave feminists. I vote every single time. I own property. I own a business. I speak out publicly. My husband can't tell me what he deems is right for my life, nor can my father, although I think they both wish sometimes. We can change. We have the ability as women in the 21st century and even in the 20th century. We can change the world. We can change the world through motherhood and through our professional lives. We can succeed and win. We can compete and beat men. I do it all the time. I'm a competitive person. Just ask our male VP. I'm always competing out with stupid stuff. Who's got more air miles? I send IQ tests and see who is smarter. Sorry, Brendan. But I know that the feminist view, the second wave feminist view of womanhood is wrong. Being a woman is not something to suppress. It's something to celebrate. The true feminist approach, the foremothers, the feminist foremothers, the first wave of feminists, the suffragettes, didn't say we had to alter our bodies, didn't have to alter our minds in order to fit into a male-dominated world. They wanted society to recognize us as equals. A truly egalitarian society isn't a society which says we're like the same, because we're not. Biology proves that we're different. Women, we are awesome multitaskers. And neuroscience proves it. We actually have like thousands more neurons connecting our left and right brains than men. That's why we're so good at juggling so many things. Science proves that we're different. But we have to address what makes us different. How can women and men compete in a world, compete in the marketplace, compete in the workplace, but not have forced women to subscribe to the male-dominated workplace? Because guess what? I'm going to waddle in there 9 months pregnant. And yeah, I'm going to need to take a lot more bathroom breaks. And you know what? When I'm lactating and breastfeeding my child, I'm going to store the breast milk in the office refrigerator. Deal with it.
Yeah.
That's not something that I should have to be ashamed about. I've learned, and many pro-life women know, that the philosophical truth is our freedom is not found in our autonomy and the ability to govern ourselves, because we aren't islands. We live in a community. Our real freedom, men and women, our freedom is the ability to love, to give and receive love, because that's what we crave. We crave love. Happiness doesn't come by satisfying our own desires. I have a lot of desires. Not all of them are good. Some of them might be just to sit at home and eat chocolate ice cream all day. Well, that's a desire that I want to fulfill some days, especially when I'm ovulating or PMSing. That's not something I know is going to bring me happiness when I step on the scale the following week. Happiness is found in serving others. That's one of the main things I tried to instill in my children, especially my children with cystic fibrosis, of what's happiness. How do you achieve happiness? The ancient Greek philosophers said that freedom is the power to choose the good. That's freedom. Aristotle said rational beings seek their ultimate end, happiness, by using their reason to judge what will further the end or undermine it. That's true freedom. I'm angry at the feminists for telling that lie about we can have it all. I'm angry that they've abandoned biology. I'm angry that they abandoned the very core principles of feminism, of nonviolence, of human equality, to adapt and buy into the lie that abortion is a necessary freedom for women. So where do we go from here? I'm a problem solver sometimes, I try to be. What's feminism look like in the 21st century? How do we truly serve women in their quest to be mother and executive? Is abortion really our solution? Is Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion vendor, which will commit 323,999 abortions this year, are they really our savior? So the first two questions, I think the answer is the discussion that we need to have as women and as men is, how do women balance it all? How do we handle it? That's what I think our task the first half of this century must be. Is there a solution that's one size fits all, that's government mandated, or is it individual? Is it done on the individual level, between employee and employer, between church and community stepping up? Is it looking at the family structure and reevaluating our priorities? At Students for Life, we talk a lot about our vision of pregnant on campus. This is what we do. This is where we put our money where our mouth is every day. This is about serving women where they're most desperate. Telling a woman that she never has to choose between the life of her child and the life she's always dreamed for herself. Because Planned Parenthood is a very simple message for her, and the abortion industry has a very simple message of, no, you can't do it all. This would be easier. Pregnant on Campus is a place, you can see we have Whitworth University resources on there. We have over 600 colleges on this website where you can go, click your state, click your school, and it lists campus-wide resources for pregnant and parenting students, as well as community-wide resources. This is a solution. It's not easy. It's not as easy as shipping her off to Planned Parenthood and letting someone else deal with it. This seeks a relationship with people. But this is a solution. You know, the abortion debate today isn't whether or not abortion kills a human being. Hashtag science, look at the ultrasound, baby sucking his thumb. Abortion definitely kills something. The question is whether or not abortion is fundamental to our freedom. So when we look at, do we need abortion as feminists in the 21st century? Do we need Planned Parenthood? In case you can't guess, my answer is a hell no. We don't need Planned Parenthood. To me, and millions of women like me, Planned Parenthood represents the problem. Their betrayal of women for profit is the real war on women. I would say, you know, we can start right here. Start right here at schools like Whitworth. This is a Christian university. You know, more than half of all women who obtain abortions in our country report to be Christians, being practicing Christians. More than 70% of women who obtain an abortion say that they went to church at least once in the past month. This is a Christian problem. What are we doing at Whitworth University to make sure no woman feels like she has to go to the Spokane abortion facility? Are we truly changing the way our university works to support pregnant and parenting women? Are we truly doing that? Because sending her to the abortionist isn't going to solve her problems. If she was in poverty when she got pregnant, she'll be in poverty when she leaves that abortion clinic. If she was in an abusive relationship when she got pregnant, she will be in an abusive relationship when she leaves that abortion facility. We've just exponentially compounded her problem by shipping her off to the abortion facility. You know, when I was writing my book a few years ago, I interviewed a bunch of students, you know, young students who were in college and high school who had experience with abortion, who had either considered abortion, had procured an abortion, gone through with abortion, who had survived abortion, who had stopped someone from having an abortion. And what's interesting is when I interviewed all the women who had abortions or who had seriously considered having abortion, there was really one common factor in all of their cases about whether or not they chose abortion. The answer, the difference of life or death for their child really was very simple. They had gone to multiple people in their lives and asked them, should I do this? What do you think? One girl, Andrea, actually went to 9 different friends until the last friend, and the first 8 all said, I don't know, it's your choice, I'll support whatever you do. It was the 9th friend who said, you know, you don't have to do this, I can help you. That's all it took for her to choose life and to place her child with an adoptive family. The young women who had abortions were the ones who had gone to their partners, who had gone to their friends, and asked for advice and were told, it's up to you. Because to them, that was code word for, I think you should have an abortion. So, we don't need Planned Parenthood. There are thousands of federally qualified health centers out there, actually 13,000 to be exact. 20 federally qualified health centers to every 1 Planned Parenthood. There's about 650 Planned Parenthood clinics across the country. Federally qualified health centers, FQHCs for people who worked in the government, are government-funded community clinics. These are clinics that provide well-women care, pediatric care. Some of them actually provide dental care and eye care. They provide mammograms, something which Planned Parenthood does not provide, and under sworn congressional testimony has finally admitted. They provide all the services that Planned Parenthood provides, plus way more, minus one thing: abortions. Federally qualified health centers serve 21 million Americans every year. Planned Parenthood boasts of serving 2.8. That number has actually declined over the past 3 years. And we actually don't know the 2015 numbers because Planned Parenthood has refused to release their annual report as they usually do every December. Planned Parenthood serves less than 2% of our population. Yet, they receive, as an entity, 3 times the amount of taxpayer money than federally qualified health centers do. Federally qualified health centers serve 21 million men, women, and children. Planned Parenthood serves 2.5 million, yet they receive 3 times the amount of taxpayer funding. Plus, federally qualified health centers, if you're an economics person, you'll appreciate this, actually provide services cheaper to patients than Planned Parenthood does. $146 on average per patient compared to $185 per patient. If Planned Parenthood were defunded, would there be a national crisis? Nope. Every federally qualified health center would need to absorb about 2 patients per week. 2 patients per week. I Googled on HRSA today on my plane. I had, thankfully, Wi-Fi on Alaska Airlines. So I went to HRSA.getyourcare.gov, and you can go there and you can find a federally qualified health center for you. There are 19 federally qualified health centers within 25 miles of this zip code. You can see, touchscreen. You can see the 3 there. You can see all the little dots on the federally qualified health centers. One, actually, the first one's really good. It's urgent care, takes all ages, health care plans, Medicaid, Medicare, no insurance. They specifically offer pediatric care and midwives. These centers truly offer comprehensive care. There are only 2 Planned Parenthoods listed in the Spokane area, and they don't offer services to pregnant women other than abortion. It says on both websites, here's Planned Parenthood's website, that they will give you a urine test. If you choose to continue pregnancy, we will provide you with a list of resources that can help you obtain prenatal care. Should have gone to the federally qualified health center in the first place. Also, fun fact, if you go to a federally qualified health center and you aren't able to get the service you need, they're actually obligated to transport you to a center that does. Planned Parenthood doesn't do that. Planned Parenthood's not a health center that just happens to do abortions, commit abortions. They spend their money to further the abortion culture. Actually, their PR budget is larger than all the other national abortion organizations. This September, Rolling Stone, Cecile Richards bragged about spending more than $30 million in Hillary for America's campaign. She bragged that they had a larger field team than Hillary. They spent more than $30 million this fall. 99% of their political donations were to Democrats. They don't just have a 501c3 nonprofit. They have a C4 and multiple C4s and all their affiliates. They have PACs. FQHCs can't do that. They have $0 for electioneering. They have $0 for lobbying. In 2008, in the Washington Times or Washington Post article, Cecile Richards bragged about how she wanted to make Planned Parenthood the nation's largest kick-butt political organization. Mission achieved, Cecile. Federally qualified health centers don't do that because they aren't about politics. They're about serving men, women, and children. Pull up Planned Parenthood's annual reports the past few years. You can get them on their website. Their government funding has continued to increase while their good services, the services that I'm told over and over again are the reason we have to continue to give them over $500 million taxpayer dollars, those services have actually decreased. From 2006 to 2015, their number of clients dropped by 19%, while their revenue rose by 30%. This is in their own annual reports. Cancer screenings, Pap tests, and breast exams have been cut in half. Prenatal services have been cut in half, but abortions have skyrocketed. Their abortions have gone from 289,750 in 2006 to over 323,999 in 2014-15. Abortion is actually down, nationally by 12%. Yet since 2010, it's only down 1.6% by Planned Parenthood. This is the kicker. In 2006, Planned Parenthood committed 1 in every 5 abortions. 2015, it was 1 in every 3. As their taxpayer dollars have risen, so has their share of the abortion industry. Further proof, ask former Planned Parenthood clinic directors about their abortion quotas. There was a great picture all over Twitter about a certificate from Planned Parenthood Rocky Mountains, which commits late-term abortions, congratulating the affiliate on meeting their abortion quota and succeeding it. You're not there to just help a woman in crisis if you have a damn abortion quota. Salesmen have quotas. My staff have quotas. How many Students for Life groups can we start? How many students do we train? How many babies do we save? How many mothers do we serve? I have quotas because that's what my metrics, my expectations for my staff are. If abortion is just something we do to help women, we wouldn't have quotas. I think further proof is this lovely tweet from Cecile Richards this spring. Ivanka Trump, who is a well-known pro-abortion advocate, her father, is the president. She's got a lot of power there in the West Wing. She actually had a private meeting with Cecile Richards and their top leadership. And in the meeting, Ivanka was trying to come to a middle ground solution here. She asked Planned Parenthood would they consider splitting into 2 entities, one that committed the good services and one that committed abortions. And that way they could go to the American taxpayers, people like me, and say, see, we held our promise, we defunded their abortion industry, that's Abortion Inc. We're going to fund Planned Parenthood, which doesn't do abortions anymore. Planned Parenthood responded, heck no. Cecile Richards, when the story broke from the New York Times, she tweeted out, Planned Parenthood is proud to provide abortion. This is what really got me. A necessary service that's vital to our mission as birth control and cancer screenings. Abortion as vital as cancer screenings? Let me say that again. They believe abortion is as vital to cancer screenings. That's messed up. That's wrong. That's just wrong. And it shows you how warped that view has been and how wrong it was for those second-wave feminists to buy into the lies of Larry Ladder, Bernard Nathanson, and to meld abortion with feminism because it's destroying feminism. That's why a majority of women, young women today, don't even call themselves feminists. It's only when like a popular actress calls herself a feminist, suddenly support for feminism goes up. This is what we've come to in our country. Tonight I haven't really proposed a lot of solutions. I really posed a lot of questions because my goal in my presentation tonight was to start the conversation. How do we truly support women who are trying to have it all? How do we deliver the truth to them about the reality of what they're undertaking before they do it? Let's not lie to them. How can we show love and compassion and protect children from violence and women from the physical and emotional toll of abortion? How do we stand up to a billion-dollar abortion industry that markets abortion as critical to their cancer screenings, that promotes the dehumanizing anti-woman lie that women's freedom is purchased through abortion, that women's freedom is purchased through the blood of her child? That's fundamentally anti-feminist, that violates all the original tenets of feminism. How can we be the change that women desperately want to see today? Changing that conversation from, no, you can't. No, you can't have your child and have that career. No, you can't continue your education and have your child. To, yeah, you can. Yeah, it's possible. Because I think we can do a whole lot better. I'm going to show you this quick video, if it works, of my friend Jocelyn. We just released it last month. I think she summarizes the issue kind of perfectly. What?
Turn around.
I'm Jocelyn. I had an abortion in Des Moines,
I do that.
2002. That morning at 7.
All right, I need a PC person. How do I switch the screen? Because it looks good on mine. You can go. Thank you. There you go. Thank you, sir. I love men.
I'm Jocelyn. I had an abortion in Des Moines, Iowa in 2002. That morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, we entered the Planned Parenthood. We were immediately asked for payment. The other people in the room were crying, they're upset. It's dark, dirty. All of the furniture is very old and outdated, and the seats were all in a U shape, so you had no choice but to see everyone else that was sitting there. There was a couple that sat in the corner crying to each other. There was another woman sitting by herself, looked like she had a very rough life. Then it was time for me to go back for my abortion. No one talks to you, no one comforts you, no one explains anything to you. There was no discussion of options. There was no discussion of community resources to help me if I wanted to parent. There was no suggestion of adoption. They did an ultrasound. I wondered why they were even doing an ultrasound, because I was under the impression that there was no baby there yet. I was very confused and did not fully understand the procedure. They said it would be mild cramping. That is the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. They say it only lasts about 10 minutes, but it felt like an hour of hell. He didn't talk, he muttered to the other staff, and when he was done, he just left. My partner at the time was bawling. This is a grown man. Bawling. Afterwards, we were led to a recovery room, which was just a small room with chairs, armchairs, and they said after a while they would check and make sure that our bleeding was okay, and then we could just leave. No aftercare, no follow-up, and it took a while, to realize what had happened, and I tried to convince myself for a long time that it was okay. You'll find that the abortion affects all sorts of areas of your life. It affects the way that you parent your other children. I had a very difficult time bonding with the daughter I already had after my abortion. I had a very difficult time bonding with the child I had after my abortion. I became pregnant right away. Drug use has been the struggle for many years. I don't feel comfortable or trust doctors. I don't feel comfortable even when it's probably needed. I certainly don't seek out dental care, specifically because the machines that are used in the dentist office, the suction, the sound of the machines, takes me right back to that day. And I I can't even go to have a cleaning done because it's that traumatic. There's absolutely no reason to go to a Planned Parenthood. There are so many community resources now that can help you get to a real doctor and receive prenatal care. There are resources to help you financially, spiritually, even if it's just finding a safe home if you're not in a place that's safe. My husband works really hard. He works 40 hours a week, and we live paycheck to paycheck. To know that my husband's hard-earned money goes to fund an organization that has destroyed my life and the lives of thousands of women, in addition to destroying children in the womb, is repugnant, and it makes me sick. I'm a one-issue voter. This has affected my entire life, not just my life, but other members of my family, other women in my family that have had abortions. This has affected our family so broadly, this can't be political anymore. These are people's lives. And I've been voting for pro-life politicians since I've been able to vote, and I need to see action. People are hurting. People's lives are being destroyed. It's time to defund Planned Parenthood.
What's interesting here, we couldn't tell in like a 4-minute video, I think the most devastating part of Jocelyn's story is we brought Jocelyn to DC after the Center for Medical Progress videos came out showing Planned Parenthood abortionists talking about trafficking human baby body parts. You know, Planned Parenthood's own forensic analysis showed that those videos weren't edited, they were true, they've never rebutted anything that was said in those videos. And we took, Jocelyn came and she volunteered to come up, and we met with the time Speaker Boehner, Speaker of the House of Representatives office, and was really pushing them why the GOP had failed to act on this issue. And she said in the meeting, and I didn't know this before she said it, but she said, you know, you might notice I don't smile a lot. Because we were lobbyists and we were very nice and polite. And we were joking around and talking with the staff while we were waiting for everyone to come into the meeting room. And she said, you know, I didn't smile today. And I had noticed it, and I just had never thought anything of it. I just thought that was kind of Jocelyn. And she said, she lifted up her tooth and she said, I have had multiple abscesses. You can see her teeth are like gray. And she said, I can't bear to go into that dentist office. I've gone to the emergency room in pain several times, trying to get, you know, care to relieve the pain. And I know I've got to go get my tooth fixed, but I don't have the money to do the full anesthesia to put myself under, and there's no way I'll last in that dentist office for more than a couple of minutes before I start hearing the swishing and the whirling of the abortion, of the dentist tools that sound like the abortionist tools. And I couldn't help but think, like, that's what we're talking about. Abortion certainly didn't free Jocelyn. She didn't feel like this full and free, liberated feminist. In fact, her life wasn't great when she had the abortion. It got a whole lot worse after, and it took years of healing to get to a place where she is today as a practicing Christian, as someone who is not using drugs or alcohol. But abortion didn't help Jocelyn. Abortion was not freedom for Jocelyn. It was something she felt she had to do. I think that's really the lie of the feminist movement today, is that we need abortion. So with that, I'm gonna put up a couple of different resources. That's 200,000 baby socks, by the way. We're collecting one baby sock for every one child Planned Parenthood will abort this year. We did that on Capitol Hill 2 weeks ago. I'm not physically recovered from all the transporting of the baby socks, but you can see the visual of the impact of what the abortion industry and Planned Parenthood is doing with our taxpayer dollars. But I'm just really proud of the baby socks. But I have some really cool resources if you want to check out. I mean, obviously Google everything and you can find all the sources, and I can give them to you later. But these are some really cool books. Women's Sex in the Church, Subverted, and then also the Hush film that was actually screened on here on campus earlier this semester. Hopefully we'll do it again. So with that, we can take a few minutes of questions, perhaps?
Yeah, we're going to have about 15 minutes of a question and answer. So just raise your hand and we'll have someone bring the mic to you. Thank you.
It's funny they all sat together.
So I've got just 2 points.
Is it a question or is it a point?
Oh, they're points, and one's a question.
Well, this is a question and answer session.
So the first one is that your links and your sources and your studies on the links between increased mental illness, increased breast cancer. It took me 5 minutes on Whitworth's EBSCO post, peer-reviewed journals, to find a literature review on that topic exactly, and it basically just debunked all of that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. The second question, and this is an actual question, are you aware that the current wave of feminists, and a lot of the feminists nowadays, their critiques of the first wave of feminism is that the first wave of feminism was basically just about upper class white women. It didn't include anyone else for the most part. It didn't get to their issues. And
The right to vote
I just wanted to ask,
for all women.
I just wanted to ask if you'd even read Bell Hooks, Chandra Mohanty, Williams Crenshaw, if you've actually read any of the critiques of the people you cite, and if you've actually taken the chance to immerse yourself in the wide range of literature available on this topic.
Yes, what do you think I do every day for my living? I immerse myself in the other side to study the other side and what other people think about this issue. So yes, I've done that. I think that is a false assumption to say that the feminist foremothers only care about white women. The right to vote for women applies to all women.
So I'm just trying to understand. Wait, let me get my question out. So I understand. I respect that you are pro-life. Like, I'm not pro-abortion myself. I'm pro-choice. I'm just trying to understand what makes you feel like you can choose for other people whether or not to have abortions. I'm just trying to understand. Like, yes, I respect your opinion, but my opinion is that women should be able to choose. Why should you choose for other women?
Sure, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at abortion and what is abortion, the question is that a choice? Is that a choice that women should be able to make? Should I have the choice to kill a 2-year-old child because my family has suddenly lost my husband's lost his means to support our family, and we're living in poverty? So do I have the choice to kill that child? What would be the difference between killing that preborn child and killing a 2-year-old?
The preborn child is not alive.
There, ladies and gentlemen, you see the crux of our issue in the abortion movement today. She just denied fundamental science. Biology states that the child in the womb is alive because the child is growing. You can't be alive. You can't be growing and not be alive. That's not an opinion, that's settled science.
I respect that you're also not a feminist, but I just want to know what your definition of feminism is.
I think the definition of feminism, like I said, I don't really know what I call myself. I said that very early on of, do I call myself a feminist or not? And some days I want to, and some days I'm like, I don't want to be a part of that. I think the definition of feminism, I have subscribed to the definition of feminism for when feminism was founded, and that is the equality, I believe, that women are equal to men and men are equal to women, and I subscribe to the principles of nonviolence.
So in a recent MSNBC interview you were in...
Thank you for doing your research.
Yeah. You said that you're anti certain forms of contraception. Could you talk a little bit about that and why?
Yeah, I encourage you all to go to Google and watch this 12-minute segment of me debating 3 people who were pro-abortion on MSNBC. It was a very enlightening conversation. And I tell the truth. And the host asked me, what do I think about contraception? Should contraception be legal or illegal? And I gave her my honest opinion. And I'm not actually ashamed of that. I told her that I believe that contraception that kills a human life should be illegal. It's not the position of my organization. Many in the pro-life movement are confused about the use of contraception and the actual science of contraception. It's not something we talk about a lot because, quite frankly, we have a lot bigger battles to fight. But do I think any drug that can kill a human being, whether it's an embryo, a 2-day-old embryo or a zygote, or whether it's a 9-month child in the womb, or whether it's a prisoner on death row, do I think drugs should be able to kill human beings and they should be legal? No.
Over here. Thank you for, over here.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming today. Definitely appreciate your willingness to have a conversation. My question is on a comment you made, maybe you didn't intend, but my current understanding is that no federal funds go towards providing abortions.
Okay,
so it seems like in the conversation that we're having, there's all this talk about defunding Planned Parenthood, and it seems to imply that defunding Planned Parenthood would stop all abortions. Another figure you cited was that 1 in 3 abortions were caused by Planned Parenthood.
Committed,
yeah. Okay, committed by Planned Parenthood. What are some of the other organizations that are doing that, and what is your organization doing to address those other organizations? Why is the focus so much on Planned Parenthood?
Thank you. This is a really great question. This is a question. We actually have a really cool video. We have a bunch of them on our YouTube page. It's on fungibility is what you would look up, because this is something that women who've come out of working in the abortion industry, and actually from congressional testimony from Planned Parenthood themselves, we know. And it's the issue of fungibility. So Planned Parenthood gets $500 million of taxpayer funds every year, right? And that's to go for birth control that they pay $2.50 for, and they charge women of means to $28 for, cancer screenings, all this other stuff. So what happens is, the federal funding, what's it pay for? It pays for the building, pays for the parking lot, it pays for the advertising of that Planned Parenthood. While it may not pay for that 1 hour that the abortionist is in the room, or when the nurse is putting the pieces of the child back together to make sure all the pieces have come out of the uterus and there's nothing left to create an infection, they may not pay for that, but we're paying for everything else. We're paying for the bed she's laying down to have the abortion. We're paying for the reclining chairs. We're paying for everything else. So it's an issue of fungibility. It's like if you've got, I don't know, $200 for rent. Say you live with someone who's like, rent's really awesome, like West Virginia, and it's like $200, and you've got money for your rent, and then a friend tells you, or your mom tells you, hey, I want to give you this money, don't use it for rent, use it for whatever you want. So you just move the money from one pile to another, right? They say, oh, I'm sorry, I said that wrong, I'm tired. Central time. Your mom says, this money's for rent. Here, I want to help you, son. Right? My mom does this to me all the time. I'm like, I don't need your money, I'm going to be 32. But sometimes I take it. So your mom says, here's your money for your rent. So you have money in your rent pile. We did this in a video, it's really cool. So your money's in your rent pile, and then your money for fun is over here. And you're just going to move your $200 that you had saved for your rent this month over to your fund pile, and you're going to move your mom's money into the rent pile. Does that make sense? So that's fungibility. Why do we target Planned Parenthood? Oh, we're so mean and nasty of targeting Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is the Goliath of the abortion industry. They're literally leading the entire charge of the abortion industry. They are the lobbyists in Washington, D.C. Because the other abortionists, so there's this organization called the National Abortion Federation, NAF, and so it's kind of like all the different abortionists are members of it. Planned Parenthood is the Walmart. There was a really great Wall Street Journal post about this, about how Planned Parenthood is actually the Walmart of the abortion industry. So most of these other abortionists that commit the other 2/3 of abortions are mom and pop abortionists. So these are local independent abortionists. A lot of them are former Planned Parenthood abortionists. There was just an undercover video that came out last month of the leading late-term abortionist in Arizona, who was trained by Planned Parenthood in Los Angeles, moved to Arizona to run the Arizona Planned Parenthood, decided she could make more money doing her own, and she was bragging about how she had to go to the gym because when she was crushing the skulls of these 20-week preborn children that was scientifically proven to feel pain, it was giving her biceps a workout. She's considered now an independent abortionist, abortion provider. So no, we focus on Planned Parenthood because they're the big dogs. They're the big ones in the room. They're the ones sending in their lobbyists. They're the ones every time a common sense piece of pro-life legislation is passed saying women have to, see the ultrasound of the child before the abortion. They're the ones that immediately file the federal lawsuits and the injunctions. It all goes back to Planned Parenthood. And so for us, our mission and our organization is to abolish abortion, to make abortion illegal and unthinkable. And to do that, you have to go after that first domino that's going to topple the rest of the abortion industry, because they prop them all up. I mean, men, they're leading the charge. Does that answer your question a little bit? You should watch the Fungibility video. It's really cool. It's like a minute and a half, but it's like shows you how to. Paul Ryan did a town hall at CNN. He did a pretty good job, but our video is a little better.
Hi. I just was wondering, what advice you have for maybe someone who agrees with your position and kind of shies away from these conversations, because I don't want to be laughed at, and I don't want to have other sources thrown in my face that maybe I didn't find. And I'm wondering how to have a constructive conversation when you're constantly made to feel like an idiot.
No. I mean, I don't know what this means. What is that? Was that?
It's like poetry snapping.
Oh, that Reese Witherspoon movie, they did that. I'm totally this is a really good question. It's a question that I get asked a lot with, especially young Christians. With I agree with you, but I don't want to be the person being spat at or screamed at or cursed at, or it's a really hard question to for a lot of people. How do I talk about this issue? I think what's so great about the pro-life movement, the anti-abortion movement, is that there's a lot of different ways you can serve. You can serve by getting involved in a local pregnancy center or a local maternity home, really being there on the ground, providing support for that woman who feels like she has no other choice. And that's not something you have to be on the front lines with a bullhorn doing, or on a TV show, or argue with people's science and having to say, no, this journal, peer academic review journal, cut off the study at 13 months and it should have gone to 36 months, blah, 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 blah. You don't have to do that. There's different ways to serve. I think it's also in your conversations with friends, because this is an issue that comes up. I always like to think of it as leaving seeds, right? You're planting seeds that you're not going to, I think a lot of times when we speak with younger pro-lifers, and I think one of the problems I had when I was 15 and I just volunteered at Pregnancy Resource Center, and I was like, this is outrageous, I can't believe this is happening, my God, we got to do something. I always went into a discussion with somebody thinking like I had to get them to walk away going, you're completely right and I've been completely wrong. We don't really function like that as human beings, right? Like our own ego won't let us do that. So what I like to do is I like to plant seeds of doubt in people's heads. I like to say a fact, and I'm not going to get in debate. Or I'm like, hey, just Google this. This is what I read. Have you ever considered this? I'll ask a lot of questions, but it doesn't have to be something you're on the front lines for. And I think that's what's so great. We were talking today. I was meeting with the Gonzaga Students for Life group, and we were talking about the different facets. Whitworth and Gonzaga have really great pregnant on-campus programs, and you guys have done a lot of work here in Spokane to make sure that we have resources for pregnant and parenting women, right? But there's other ways we can serve. There's writing letters to the editor of the newspaper. There's calling your congressman from your dorm room and no one has to know you're doing it. There's things you can do. You just have to find what are you passionate about. Every one of us has been given some sort of skill that we can put to use, some sort of talent that we can put to use in the pro-life movement to serve women and serve children. Hope that answers your question. Is there any more questions?
Hi, Kristan. My name is Kamina. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I was just curious because I think you and I have something in common, is that we're not pro-abortion. I am pro-choice, but I'm not pro-abortion. I don't think anyone is. And I was curious, what can we do now? Because abortions are going to happen no matter what. How can we work together, either pro-choice and pro-life people, how can we work together on this common goal of decreasing the amount of abortions together? In my opinion, I feel like providing contraception, like I have, since I've been 16, I've been sexually active, so I don't want an unwanted pregnancy, so I take this pill, so I don't get an abortion. So when services like Planned Parenthood provide contraception like this for free, and thanks to Obamacare, I have this for free, I can prevent an unwanted pregnancy and therefore decrease the amount of abortions.
Sure.
But I'm just confused when you say you don't believe in contraception. Does that mean condoms? Does that mean...
Sure, well, there's a couple of things. One, Obamacare labeled pregnancy a preventable disease. Just FYI. So much for feminism. Obamacare labeled pregnancy a preventable disease. Just, I haven't gotten over that. As someone who's been pregnant 4 times, I'm a little angry about it. Because I didn't have a disease of pregnancy. I think that, one, you started out the conversation saying you weren't pro-abortion. This is why I don't like labels. Because I believe if you are for legal abortion, if you think abortion should be an option, if you think it should be government funded, then you are in fact for abortion. You are pro-abortion. I would be pro-choice because I'm the one saying there are options for her. She can choose to parent her child, or she can place her child with an adoptive, loving family. So I understand that. So I'm just saying, I would say right from the very beginning, I think we have disagreements about how you label yourself. I actually prefer to use the words pro-abortion and anti-abortion. I'm proud of anti-abortion. I'm anti-smoking, I'm anti-sex trafficking, I'm anti-child labor, I'm anti-death penalty, I'm anti-abortion. So I think we had disagreements about the fundamental labelings there. In terms of contraception, contraception doesn't lower abortions. It doesn't. Contraception has been freely available since 1972 in all relationships, married and unmarried relationships, and the abortion numbers in our country have only risen. The reason we have abortion today in our nation is because of contraception. Because you can't tell women and men, I don't lie and I don't deliver like subtleties here. I'm just going to tell you the truth, and most of the room's not going to agree with this. You can't tell women and men that there are no consequences to sex, that you can take this pill, you can put this dangerous IUD in your body, and you can have sex outside of a loving relationship. You can't do that without abortion, because ultimately contraception will fail. We know that all the time, that breakthrough ovulation occurs. I have many friends who got pregnant taking the birth control pill. Therefore, we know breakthrough ovulation occurs, and you can't do that without abortion. Now, when I said on TV that I believe contraception, that I personally believe contraception should be illegal, it's not the mission of our organization, not the mission of the pro-life movement. I believe any drug that causes the demise, that kills a human being, should be illegal. So I'm not talking about birth control methods such as condoms or sponges or barrier methods. I'm talking about drugs that have been chemically proven and that's in the literature to end the life of a human being. What has changed in our country is the definition of pregnancy. In the late 60s, the definition of pregnancy was changed in our country. It used to be pregnancy meant when the egg and the sperm united, because that's at the point when a new human person is formed, right? That has all the unique DNA that no one else has ever had. That's a point that you'll never get back. That is the moment of conception. The definition of pregnancy was changed from that uniting to the point of implantation. So early chemical contraceptive drugs, IUDs, birth control pills, Depo-Provera, the third mechanism, and you can look this up on the big pamphlet the birth control pills have, the third mechanism is it will make the womb inhospitable to implantation. So the human embryo cannot implant into the lining of the uterus. That, my friends, is an early abortion, because unique, whole, living human being that's never existed before. Google the definition of zygote. Google the definition of zygote and embryo. A unique, whole, living human person that's never existed before and will never exist again comes into life at the moment the sperm meets the egg. That is when pregnancy, my friends, begins. That, my friends, is when life begins. Any other questions?
We have time for one more, unfortunately.
So you say you're against
contraception, such as birth control, would you still be against it when people such as myself use it to regulate the menstrual cycle? I had to have surgery 2 years ago, and I got placed on birth control because it helps keep me alive, basically.
Yeah, my sister has the same problem. She has an ovarian cyst disorder. It's very painful. She was placed on birth control as well. I think it's, I love how the conversation always goes to the extremes, by the way. We're talking about feminism, abortion, we're talking about contraception. It's my fault. I shouldn't have brought it up on MSNBC. So no, I think when you're talking about chemical birth control, I would first ask, why would your physician feel that that's necessary? Because that's a group 1 carcinogen labeled by the World Health Organization, increases the risk of stroke. Quite frankly, when I speak to med students all the time, and we do a lot of work on green sex, natural family planning, how to actually get to the core dysfunction of what's going on in a woman's body, how can we help her? The woman is prescribed birth control because, quite simply, it's lazy. It's here you go. It doesn't actually. It actually doesn't get to the core. It doesn't get to your core problems. It's masking the core problems, and it's actually a carcinogenic drug.
She just said it keeps her alive. She just said that.
And you know what? If she wants to take a carcinogenic drug for the condition, I'm fine with it. She can do that. But if she's in a relationship where sexual intercourse is happening, there's a potential that human life will be destroyed. Does anyone have any questions on feminism and abortion, or just like kill it?
Okay, that's unfortunately all the time we have for today. I want to thank you all for coming, because this is a difficult conversation to have, and just being part of this conversation is, I'm really thankful for you all for coming. There will be a meeting with, for a private meeting with Kristan for club members in Georgia's place, so I just want to remind club members about that. And yeah, thank you all for coming.